Hey, Crosspoint. If we haven't met yet, my name is Ethan, and I lead Hendersonville students. I am so glad that you're here with us today, and if you're new here, this is actually a pretty cool series to join us in, just because each week we're having these mini small groups during our message, and it's just giving y'all the chance to talk to the people around you just about the different questions that we ask. So listen up, be ready, the questions are coming. Hey, but like I was saying, we get to step into our second week of our new series, and it was good. So starting off, I have a thought for you. While there are some situations in our lives that can be categorized as gray areas, for the most part, we can determine when a situation is really good or really bad pretty quickly, right? Something about a bad or an unfair situation makes us feel a certain way. Maybe we don't know how to explain it, but it's there. We feel it here. And for a lot of us, it started when we were young and we saw someone get something we didn't get or do something we wanted to do. And then those famous words would come out. That's not fair. That's not fair, right? Sometimes these are little things, like when a sibling got something we didn't get. Or maybe you witnessed a friend turn in their homework late with no consequences, but then the other friend or yourself got points taken off for doing the same thing. But sometimes unfair situations can be way more serious and even have worse consequences. For instance, one of my earliest memories of something truly unfair happened when I was just a kid. My parents got divorced when I was pretty young. I was about 8 years old, and my dad moved out. My sister and I lived most of the time with my mom. I remember seeing her so hurt for so long, and it truly felt like she didn't deserve that hurt. Though we made the best of it, that hurt and that injustice she experienced continued to shape us for the rest of our lives. Injustice is a very real part of my family's story. Now, we've been talking about injustice the past couple weeks, which simply put is things in our world that are unfair, unequal, or not right. So here's a question for you. Has there ever been a time in your life where you experienced injustice? And how did you handle it? Hey y'all, we're back. I know we can probably all agree it's hard to experience injustice. It's painful to see something happen right in front of us that we know deep down is wrong. And the thing is, it makes us all ask, why doesn't somebody do something, right? What will it take to make this situation shift from bad to good? And it's even worse when the injustice is ongoing and systemic and constant and feels like nothing will change and feels like no one cares. Well, somebody does care, y'all. God cares. He cares about what's happening to us and around us. And you know what? I can say this with absolute confidence that God is against injustice. And part of following God means that we care about the things that he cares about, but also caring enough to actually help in a situation, to help it shift from bad to good. Maybe you hear that and think, great, that's great, sounds perfect, awesome, good, but what am I supposed to do about that? That's a totally fair question. I mean, when we look at the world and see how many things aren't fair, it can be a lot, right? We see people who've been victims of injustice from things like racism, oppression, discrimination, prejudice. Literally, the list goes on and on. And maybe you've had to deal with those things in your own life. Maybe you have felt that way and you've wondered, how do I handle this when it's happening to me and not just around me? Then there are others who are thinking, that's not me. That's not my story at all. And I get that too. But as a community of believers who care about one another, when one of us suffers, we all suffer. That's why I want to challenge you to lean in and practice what we talked about in our first week. And that's to be curious. Be curious about what to do when you or someone else experiences injustice. What do you do when you feel like you're alone in that? With all of that in mind, I want to tell you an incredible story from the Word of God about 3 friends who experienced injustice and how God brought them through it. Now, around 600 BC, there was a Babylonian king named King Nebuchadnezzar. Dude's got a mouthful of a name. Cool name, not a cool dude. Either way, he was powerful. He conquered Israel, captured the people, did all of the things, and one day, he built a giant 90-foot golden statue and ordered everyone to bow down to it and worship that statue. If anyone chose not to do that, they would be thrown into a fire. Crazy, I know. Now it says that the 3 Jewish men named Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were captured for not worshiping the statue. And the reason was because they were worshipers of God, not the statue. And they refused to bow down to it. Now, the king did not love this news. It actually made him really, really mad. And he ordered Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to be brought to him. He gave them one more chance, which was nice, but to bow down and to worship the statue. And they stood their ground. They wouldn't do it. They knew it wasn't right for someone to force them to worship anyone, anything other than God. And here's the thing, y'all. They believed that God could rescue them. But even if God didn't rescue them, they still didn't want to turn from their devotion to God. This is courage. That is faith. That is unwavering obedience that will cost them. So here's your second question. Have you ever made the right decision out of obedience, but it cost you something? All right, y'all, let's get back into the story. Now, of course, the king hated this, and he was like, all right, throw them in the fire, get it done. And while you're at it, turn it up 7 times hotter than usual. Crazy, right? Well, here's what happened. Then King Nebuchadnezzar leaped to his feet in amazement and asked his advisors, weren't there 3 men that we tied up and threw them into the fire? They replied, certainly, your majesty. He said, look, I see 4 men walking around in the fire, unbound and unharmed, and the 4th looks like a son of the gods. Nebuchadnezzar then approached the opening of the blazing furnace and shouted, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out, come here. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came out of the fire, and the satraps, prefects, governors, and royal advisors crowded around them. They saw that the fire had not harmed their bodies, nor was a hair on their heads singed. Their robes were not scorched, and there was no smell of fire on them. What? Like, that's crazy, right? Now, we don't know who that 4th man was in the fire with them. Was he God? Was he Jesus? Was it an angel? We don't know. But one thing is clear. In a moment of extreme injustice, these 3 stood up for what was good and what was right, and in doing so, God made sure they were not alone. They were doing good work, and God did not abandon them or leave them to suffer on their own. In the same way, when you choose to do good work in spite of injustice, God will work with you and not abandon you. God cared about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. God cared about their choice to do what was good, standing their ground and standing up for what was right. And in the middle of all of that, God made sure they weren't alone in their suffering or injustice. Did things change eventually? Yes, they did. Did the laws change as a result of their injustice? Yes, but don't miss what's happening while they were suffering. God cared for them. In the same way, God cares about you. He doesn't want you to be alone. He doesn't want you to be alone when you face injustice. Maybe you hear this story and you feel it. Maybe you're so tired, so hurt, so burned by the things you've experienced that you don't even know where to turn. I want you to know this, that you do not have to be alone. God is with you. God hears you. He sees you. He wants to have a relationship with you. That means bringing all of your feelings to him. Your confession, your confusion, your hurt, your frustration. He can handle it all, y'all. So talk to him. Ask for help. Don't give up. The guys in the fire didn't give up, and God was with them through it all. Now, some of you may have heard that story and thought, I haven't really experienced injustice. What does that mean for me? Well, it could be that you're more like the people in the crowd, the ones who watched what was happening but did nothing. Sometimes we participate in unjust situations by allowing them to happen while we watch. If that's you, you can talk to God about that too. Psalm 139 says this, God, see if there is any offensive way in me. So start there. Ask God to help you see the ways that you've participated in injustice. See how it's affected some of the people that you care most about. Let it become personal to you. Some of us, we've done these things in our lives. Others, we've never really experienced them firsthand. And a lot of us have been hurt by injustice more times than we can count. Well, no matter what you've done, what you've witnessed, or how you've been hurt, Jesus offers us a way through it all, through the fire, just like he was with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Every single step of the way. Our obedience can be costly. We learned that from these 3 men. But y'all, it is so worth it. Because we also learned that when you choose to do good work with God, God will do good work with you.